It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
All right, welcome everybody. So I'm going to see who joins us live, but this was an experiment with the robot. I told the robot to give me 100 gun questions to create questions that explore gun ownership, training, firearm history, gun development, cleaning, gunsmithing, collecting, investing, and gun owners' rights. To make the questions interesting, to be progressively more interesting, and if they needed to interweave topics and themes, do so. So let's get into it and see how this works. So the first question that came, and we're broadcasting now live on a couple of different platforms. So if you want to comment, do so. Let us know what state you're in if you want. And we want to thank our Patreons who make it possible for us to do stuff like this. So let me make sure that everything is as quiet as it can be. Let me know if you get any feedback or give me some feedback on my audio, I guess. So the first question that came up was, what first drew you to gun ownership, and how has that reason changed over time? So feel free to answer these yourself if you'd like. For me, what first drew me to gun ownership, I've pretty much owned a gun as long as I've lived. So I don't remember a time when I didn't go shooting on weekends and clean guns and reload, and go to the gun shows and gun shops on weekends. So what drew me to gun ownership was just part of life, just like going to the store, cutting the lawn and stuff like that. How has that reason changed over time? I guess it hasn't changed over time. That's an interesting question. I don't know. Rank it if you want. Let me know if that was a good question or not. It probably is a good question for some people. There's a lot of people that get into gun ownership later in life, so that might be an interesting question for them. So the next question that the robots asked, what's one firearm you own that has a story people never guess from looking at it? I've got a couple of guns that you can tell there's a story by looking at them. What's a firearm that I own that has a story people would never guess by looking at it? So I guess, again, I'm trying to think. I do own some weird guns that have stories, but they are weird looking. So I think if they were all on a table, people might ask about those. What gun do I have that has a story that I think I don't have it anymore, but I used to own some guns that were carried by a SWAT cop, and I thought that was pretty cool. I guess at the time here in Tucson, they could carry whatever gun they wanted, and then at some other point they couldn't, so he sold the ones that he had carried, and it was a SIG. So I owned that one for a while, and I don't think you'd know by looking at it that it was actually carried on duty by a SWAT cop in Tucson. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's one I come up with. Again, feel free to rank your answers, rate these questions and answer them if you'd like yourself. G23's out there. You're saying Colt model 1927. I don't know what that one's all about. Maybe the gun with that last question there. So question number 3. How do you evaluate a gun's ergonomics in under 60 seconds? So I think I could read that 2 different ways. Like, how do I answer that in 60 seconds? Or how do I evaluate the ergonomics in under 60 seconds? So for me, I look if there's finger grooves, and I look if the handguard is curved or has any kind of curves or lumps to it. Typically, think of like a 1911 with standard grips. There's a little bit of roundness to it, but it's essentially a rectangle. A Glock without the finger grooves, like a rectangle, just at a little bit different angle. So that's pretty much how I would tell a handgun's ergonomics. Now, when we're talking revolvers, ergonomics are all about the grip. So most of them have a pretty decent grip, a comfortable grip, but you can take a look at some handguns, some revolvers, and in under 30 seconds, you can really quickly tell if the grip is going to be too small to hold on to, especially when you kind of compare that to the caliber. Otherwise, ergonomics have to do with bore axis, and most people like the bore to be as low to their hand as you can imagine. So some of the semi-autos that have a really high bore axis can be unwieldy and essentially not ergonomic. And then you get into size. Some of the big heavy guns can be not ergonomic just because it takes too much strength, hand strength, arm strength to get them up there. Feel in the hands, natural pointing. Okay, question number 4. My goal is, because there's 100 questions, to kind of dig into them. So for people that are joining us, I asked the robot to give me 100 gun questions, and I'm just answering them here kind of one at a time, or one after another. Question number 4. What's the single most common cleaning mistake you see new gun owners make? That might be, and this is controversial, cleaning too often. Just like any machine, preventive maintenance is important. Cleaning for operation is important, but cleaning for the sake of cleaning can wear off finishes, and it can remove lubes and greases that are kind of meant to be there. So unless you're really competent and confident that you understand where the lubes, I think of a lube and a grease as something that stays on the gun as opposed to an oil or a something else like a Teflon powder or something that could fall off the gun. So when you're using a solvent, for example, to remove things that seem dirty, you might be removing grease or things that are there for lubrication. So in that case, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes as a new gun owner. The new gun owner often clean the guns completely, or clean them in such a way like use water without oil after, and that kind of thing. So you run the risk of rust or making springs rust inside and things like that. Some stuff that isn't obvious. Next question. Again, maybe every 5 questions I'll explain that I've asked the robot to give me 100 questions, gun questions, and I'll describe that again after every 10 questions. So question number 5. I'm trying to put them up on the screen here as we go. So thanks to everybody for joining us. What era of firearm development, and it gives us some ranges here, do you find most fascinating and why? So the eras are pre-1850. So I think 1850 is like when the revolvers started to have the regular ammo through them. So the bored through cylinder revolvers came around in 1850. So basically cartridge revolvers. Everything before that is, kind of primitive ignition, let's say 1850 to 1900. So that's the beginning of cartridges up until the 1911, right? And then you get the 1900 to 1950. So all the guns of our grandparents, and then post 1950 is a lot of guns. Which one do I find the most fascinating? I don't really like the pre stuff, so I'm going to go with the 1850 to 1900 because there's a lot of guns in there. And that's when it was kind of footloose and fancy free, because all of that was pre-1934 when they put all kinds of federal level stupid-ass restrictions on gun development. So that 1850 to 1900 would actually be a good time to just live. I think that would have been a fun time. I think Scott agrees with me there. Oh, shit, I didn't put that question on the screen. I'm sorry. So next question is 6. How would you explain... Hold on, I'll put it on the screen. How would you explain the difference between precision marksmanship and practical accuracy to a newcomer? Precision marksmanship is being able to shoot the cap off of a water bottle at some amount of distance. Practical accuracy is to be able to hit the water bottle at some amount of distance after a draw, or after you spin around, or some kind of cool maneuver first. So practical, like being able to use it in a reaction or in a necessary time, versus precision marksmanship. So next up is number 7. Okay, I'm trying to coordinate how I click my fingers here and read. What's a gunsmithing modification that reliably improves reliability without hurting original value? A gunsmithing modification. See, that doesn't even tell me what gun it is. So a gunsmithing modification that reliably improves reliability without hurting original value. This is a tough one. A gunsmithing. See, I would say like a good lube or like a good application of a lubricant process or something, but that's really not a gunsmithing modification. So a gunsmithing modification that's not going to hurt the original value is kind of a not that can't equal. You know what I mean? So I would say, like, I'm just going to say vein comp, like having a master modifier modify a shotgun in this case to a spec that has had time on the clock. No one is going to consider a vein comped shotgun less value than the original. So it's actually going to increase the value, and everything vein comp does improves reliability. So boom, vein comp. Number 8, which obsolete cartridge? Scott says change springs or guide rod. G23 says scope or optic. That's actually pretty good. You know, I hate optics, so I didn't go that way, but that's actually a pretty good answer. So the next one, number 8. Which obsolete cartridge do you secretly wish were still commonly made, and why? So let's get started. Which obsolete cartridge? There's shit that's not being made. 45 gap to piss off all the gap haters or the Glock haters out there. That's my answer. You can do your own show with 100 questions if you don't like my answers. What's your method for spotting a tired barrel or throat erosion before it becomes obvious? Take a cartridge that hasn't been fired yet and put it in the muzzle. So if it can fit into the muzzle, your barrel is eroded. So that was an old trick for Mosins and stuff, but I mean, hopefully it never happens to a real gun, but it'll happen to a shot out, war gun. But that would be a quick trick. Let's see. Number 10. And okay, so now we're at number 10. So the thing I'm doing here is I asked my robot, give me 100 gun questions. I told him to make the questions explore gun ownership, training, firearms history, gun development, cleaning, gunsmithing, collecting, investing, and gun owners' rights, and to make the questions interesting and progressively more interesting if possible. So we're on number 10, and I'll break every 10 questions to mention that, but I'm going to try to get through this quicker than not because it'll take a while, I think. How do you decide whether to restore, preserve, or leave a historic firearm untouched? Wow, that's a good question. In 2025, leave it untouched. There's no excuse to screw around with a gun that is rare. That's my answer. Number 11. What training drill changed your shooting the most in a single session? The dot drill. That's a shitty answer. It's kind of, there's more to it, but I'm trying to go fast. So go look up a dot drill, print it out on a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper, take one box of 50 rounds of ammo, and start doing dot drills. And you don't have to thank me. Thank whoever made the dot drill. Number 13. Oh, wait, hold on. Number 12. I'm messing my cadence up here. What is the most misunderstood bit of firearms history you wish everyone knew? That the NRA didn't do a bunch of shit in 1986 against gun owners. That's just annoying, and it spins us around for no fucking reason. Gets all the Redditors all pissed off about NRA unnecessarily. And it's just because nobody bothered to ask the Knox family who was around and paying attention and willing to talk about that stuff. So the next one, how do you weigh the ethics of firing reproduction ammunition through an antique firearm? That's ethically wrong. Everything about that is fucked up. So don't do it. I can't abide by it. Nothing. There's nothing about that that's good. So don't do it. Let's see. G73 says Springfield Armory hates your Second Amendment rights, and they are the reason for the anti-2A laws in Illinois now. They helped with it, but they're not the only reason for all of it. Let's see. So number 14. In what scenario would you choose a revolver over a semi-auto for self-defense today? Let's see. What scenario? Every scenario. Boom. I'm a revolver person, and I'm not as scared. I can handle justifying that. So every scenario is better with a revolver in 2025. Let's see. Number 15. What's an underrated maintenance tool every gun owner should have, but few do? An underrated maintenance tool. Some kind of microfiber cloth. Like have a towel with your gun stuff so that you're wiping that lead off and you're not getting all over your hands, especially if you smoke. Holy moly, if you smoke, get a rag or something and start wiping off your guns. Wipe off your face once in a while. Clean yourself when you're at the range. I think we'd all be better off without that lead. You know, the lead's going to be there, but we don't have to just leave it on our faces and shit. So that was number 15. Here's number 16. Which rifle, action, bolt, lever, semi-auto has the most interesting engineering story? That's a great question. Which rifle, action, bolt, lever, or semi-auto? Nobody gives a shit about bolt, so that's that. Lever was invented by Browning, right? And semi-auto is when he figured out that the grass was blowing over when he was shooting, that he could capture that energy and created a little spoon, literally a little spoon with a hole in it that collected that energy and cycled his lever. So I believe the way it went down is he sat around one day, created a lever action, put a little lever on his lever action that retained the energy of each shot and turned his lever action into a machine gun. So it actually went stupid bolt action, which is boring and nobody likes, then lever actions, then full auto, and then semi-auto. So semi-auto has the most interesting engineering story because it predated, or it came after full auto. So let's see. What is a collector's red flag when looking at an old military rifle? If it's too clean. If it looks clean, then it's wrong. Next. How did suppressor technology influence modern small arms design and training? It didn't, because of the stupid NFA. If the NFA wouldn't have existed, we'd probably have different guns that had, what am I trying to say, barrels that are affixed to the frame. We don't have that. We have all Browning designs because nobody was building for suppressors. So how did suppressors technology influence modern? That the Silencer Co. Is it the Osprey? What was the name of the Silencer Co. pistol? We got that, at least, but it didn't go very far. Let's see. The next one is number 20. So the reason, what we're doing here, every 10, I'm stopping to mention, I gave the robot the instructions to give me 100 gun questions. I want those questions to explore gun ownership, training, history, gun development, cleaning, gunsmithing, collecting, investing, and gun owners' rights. I asked it to make the questions interesting and make it progressively more interesting. I'm stopping every 10 to mention that, and then we'll keep going. So question number 20 is, what are the signs a gun will be a good long-term investment versus a fad? If it's not 9mm, it will be a good investment. If it's 9mm, it's a fad. Okay, number 21. What is a practical test to check headspace without specialized tools? Conceptual, not step-by-step. Put a round in it, and if the round closes, then you're probably good to go. If you shake it and the round shakes back and forth, don't shoot that gun. I don't know if that's what it wanted, but I'm not going to keep going. Number 23. What small caliber cartridge surprised you with performance in real world use? 5.7 a little bit, and then whatever that H&K thing is, that is like a little tool, little 223. I don't know what it is, but that thing, I shot it a couple of times at some military shoots, and man, I don't want to be in front of that. It's like little fast darts. And I like the idea of a lot of rounds for, applications where if somebody's not wearing armor, like that would be, appropriate to have a lot of little rounds. So that was, I think I'm behind. So now I'll do number 24, or I'm saying the question before I got this thing out here. Scott's saying 223. How did that surprise you? How do you teach people about recoil management that most training courses skip? How do you teach people about recoil management that most training courses skip? That's an interesting question, and I don't know if I have an immediate quick answer for that one. Teaching people about recoil management? Shit. I don't know. My mind is going towards cadence to teach people to, if they got like 2 or 3 steels in front of them, or just 3 targets, 3 cardboards in front of them, have them, get 1, 2, 3 with some sort of rhythm, boom, 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 so that they kind of get used to mitigating their, dealing with that recoil. Not so much a game, but just a drill, maybe. I don't know if that's what it's asking. So that's an interesting one. Somebody else could answer that better. I'm not an instructor, as you can tell. I'm not that good of an instructor. How have material sciences, stainless steels, polymers, reshaped small arms maintenance? Well, the same way that we have better guns because of better materials, we have better tools. So, Clover saying can't use harsh chemicals. Interesting. I don't know about that, because I was going to say maybe you could actually clean things a little easier than in the day. You didn't have to worry about finishes and stuff like that. But how have material sciences reshaped small arms maintenance? I'm going to say that because the guns are made better, they just don't wear out. So you do have perishable parts like springs and some things. But for the most part, guns don't just fall apart. Like, things don't peen, things don't fall out of shape like aluminum. And the polymer stays, for the most part, it stays together, and we haven't experienced plastic fatigue on any pistols yet. So we'll see when that starts to happen. Let's see. So number 26. And thanks everybody for throwing in comments and stuff. When everybody watches the replay, they'll be in here. I'm just doing this for the first time now. I'm going to see how long it takes to do 100 questions. If this takes like 7 hours, it's pointless. But if I can do this in like an hour or something, maybe I'll go back and do it with questions or something. So let's see. Number 26 is, what is one lesser known law or regulation gun owners should absolutely understand in your state? Well, we need to know stupid reciprocity, because we have to. A lesser known law is probably red flag laws, because they're getting kind of shifted in, or they're kind of being pushed in different ways, and just be sure that you're not living under the rule of one and you don't realize it, maybe that kind of thing. But that's a good question. If I had more time, I'd probably come up with a better answer for that one. Number 28. Oh shit, what happened? Number 27. How do you evaluate a shotgun's choke pattern in a meaningful, time-efficient way? You take a big-ass cardboard box and you rip it into 2 pieces, and then you put them on a target frame, if the range will allow it, because a lot of ranges are like, don't do that, you're ruining our target frames. Some of them will have like a metal target frame, and some of them will have like an old shitty target frame for this. But that's pretty much the easiest way. You just take a big-ass piece of cardboard and then shoot at the center of it. And then Clover's saying the same thing, so that means it's correct. So, you know what? Clover does. I don't know why Clover didn't say this, but you want to get an infinite defense target, paint it white, and then shoot at it. Those are made in Phoenix, and I think they're made out of the same material tires are made out of. I don't know why Clover didn't say that, but yeah, you want to shoot at an infinite defense target, and then it'll basically go through the rubber or into the rubber and disrupt all that paint, and you'll be able to see where the paint, patterned. Let's see. I don't know why Clover didn't say that. Number 28. Which wartime firearm innovation had the biggest ripple effect on civilian guns? 1911. 1911. 1911. 1911. What? YouTube rejected your comment. That means they think it's spam. Try changing it a little bit. Well, fuck you. They're still rejecting my comment. What's up with that? I got timed out on YouTube. It's probably because I'm typing in too many comments or something from my own chat. Lame. Yeah, it's not letting me type in any comments. So that means I can't bring them up on the screen. Let me try typing them in over here. Yeah, let me type it in over here. So now I have to just do it all weird, maybe. Is it going to show up? Which wartime firearm invention? Oh, okay, I already did that one. So then what are the site? Okay, this one is, sorry, now I have to do this all backwards. I am using StreamYard, but it timed me out. Let's see. Maybe it'll show up in a minute. Uh-oh. Huh. This really ruined the cadence. Yeah, exactly. Now it's not even showing me my own comments on StreamYard. Show comments on stage. Is it showing the comments? There they go. All right, well, I'll just have to figure. Oh, you know what? It didn't take that comment. Let me try it again. Paste and send. So what are the psychological... No, it's not. It's timing me out no matter what. That's messed up. All right, I'll just read them. I know that's lame. Let me get rid of this one off the screen. But it's not letting me type my comments in anywhere now. What are the biggest psychological skills that separate a competent shooter from an exceptional one? I'd say being able to focus, being able to take, I think focus, what are the psychological skills? I mean, I don't know how many it wants, but that's what I'm going to say. I think someone who, any sport, right? Someone who can focus and not be distracted by their past performance can use their performance to help them, the next time. Oh, look at that. So what's the best, this is number 30, for people that are joining us. I'll quit saying this because we're not getting that many people joining, but I asked the robots to give me 100 questions and to get progressively more interesting as we go along. So this is number 30. What's the best way to judge whether a gun's finish is original or a later refinish when viewing quickly? Look at the roll marks, look at the numbers on it, and if they have any kind of buildup, then they're, it's been covered. That's for paint. I mean, there's different things for bluing and for stuff. Clover's saying, look at the mating surfaces. So look where the two surfaces touch and make sure it's not weird. Kind of like a car. Let's see. How do you decide when to seek a professional gunsmith versus DIY repairs? That's an excellent question. With the internet in 2025, you go online and you ask. You thank goodness that there's communities created by people like Gizzard Gary, who does a show live every Monday. You've got, who else is still live anymore? I got to say Yankee, and you can ask him, I guess. He'll tell you an answer on anything. But then you got, me and Tony do a show on Saturday. But then you got Hillbilly. Who else is live anymore? But there's people that do live shows. The Reloaders do a live show on Friday, I think. So go to one of those live shows and ask in a live show, and you'll get multiple answers, but you'll get answers from people who know what's up. And you're not alone, and not in 2025. The internet does bring us all together for that kind of stuff. So number 32, what is a surprising thing modern shooters can learn from flintlock or black powder practices? Well, I guess I could also say Rich has a show. I'm quirking him right now. When collecting, I was going to put this over here. Oh, no, wait, I'm doing this wrong. What's a surprising thing modern shooters can learn from flintlock or black powder practices? Calming down. Yeah, Clover's saying flinch, but yeah, like if you don't know trigger pull, then you can't shoot black powder and flintlock. Like it's all about, and G23 is saying anticipation. That's a good one too. So Ghost ain't back. Ghost did one show. He ain't back until he's actually back. He's got to earn his backness. But anyway, yeah, I think the basics. Because what happens with a black powder is it doesn't always go off when you pull the trigger. So there's sort of like a slow motion type of situation. It's like a magnification or an amplification of your trigger. So Scott's saying trigger control. I think we're all on the same boat there. So when collecting, how do you value provenance, paper trail, against physical condition? I almost never take any provenance at all, except for Colt letters and Smith & Wesson letters, because people paid $100 to the stupid ass Cody, Wyoming museum for that. And that museum sucks, but their letters are legit because they'll send somebody downstairs into all the books that they don't have on display and make sure where your gun was sold to and all that. So it's pretty neat. Aside from that, everything could potentially be fake. So I don't believe nothing else. Other people can have other opinions if they want, and they can do their own show with the robot asking them questions. But I only look at physical condition. Let's see. How has volley of accessory options, lights, optics, triggers, changed what practical means? So I don't know. That's a weird ass way of saying how has the variety of accessories, I guess, changed what practical means. They have made guns that have multiple failure points now, and people now have to train for a lot more failure points than before they had lights and optics and triggers on them. Yep. And practical now means you have to be able to worry about light and dark situations, maybe. I don't know if that's a good answer. These aren't all going to be excellent answers. Let's see. So next up is number 36. What firearm-related myth do you still hear that drives you nuts? Debunk it briefly. Well, this robot knows me. It is the fact that revolvers are bad for women. Revolvers are awesome for everyone. And it's just a shame that more trainers, more instructors aren't competent with revolvers, so they perpetrate that dumbass myth. But revolvers are freaking awesome. Number 37, how do you assess the trade-off between weight and durability in field rifles? Durability always wins. So how do I assess the trade-off? Lift more weights, do more push-ups. Durability always wins. Next. What's a nuanced take on gun owners' rights that isn't commonly discussed in headlines? What's a nuanced take on gun owners' rights that isn't discussed in headlines? Gun owners are the brunt of attacks by very rich people who want to distract us from other things that they're probably criminally responsible for. And we just haven't had good representation or something to solidify our position in that regards. It's getting better, but historically we've had very little clarity on that. So next, number 39, which historic firearms designer or inventor had underrated influence on modern guns? Which historic firearms designer or inventor had an underrated influence on modern guns? George Kellgren, the Keltec and the Intertech. They're saying Glock. Glock, I think, gets credit for what he did, but I think Kellgren is underrated. Number 40. How do you verify serial number provenance without relying solely on the seller's word? Almost all guns that are of value have a book. So somebody published a book with all the data. And if there's no data, then there's no book because there's no data, then there's no way to know. So definitely you don't take the seller's word. Number 41. What's an unexpected way to increase a gun's resale value that doesn't involve cosmetic mods? Rechamber in the 9mm into 40. No, I don't know. What's an unexpected way to increase a gun's resale value that doesn't involve cosmetic mods? Do something amazing with it on your YouTube channel. That's my answer. Number 42. This is going to be the most interesting question, I suspect. How would you compare training for dynamic scenarios versus static marksmanship in a single line? Okay, so training for dynamic scenarios means moving around and having to be familiar with the gun in 360 degrees, as well as, it's where its muzzle's pointing and where you're walking, and a lot more variable. Static marksmanship, has you focus almost with ability to tunnel vision on your trigger and your sight alignment and your breathing. Number 43. What is a small gun? That was actually a letdown for question 42. I feel bad for the robots. That's how you know they're not human, because they don't have a soul, because they didn't make question 42 good. Number 43. What's a small gunsmithing tweak that makes old lever actions more user-friendly for modern shooters? You wrap leather around the loop. That's the only thing you can do. Don't do anything else. But you wrap a piece of cool suede leather around the strap or around the loop. You have a little bit dangling off if you're cool. All right, number 44. Okay, which ammunition development in the last 30 years has had the most meaningful practical impact? The stupid ass 147 grain 9mm. Stupid. I hate that this robot forced me to say that, because it's stupid. All right, number 45, which should be good. How far behind are y'all? Polish the action. Fiber sights. What? You guys are way behind. Yeah, I don't know how this would work, because I'm going pretty quick. So number 45, how would someone new to collecting set boundaries so hobby expenses don't get out of control? Dollar cost average. Let's see. How would someone new to collecting set boundaries so hobby expenses don't get out of control? Okay, I think a quick answer to this is only buy things that you're able to come across in person. So don't use eBay as a cheat, and you won't basically lose your wallet, because that's what happens when you collect and then go to some place like eBay, a cheat. Or if you went to Pot of Gold auctions, almost every Tuesday they have a live auction online, and if you ended up getting a whole bunch of great bargains that way, a whole bunch of great bargains is still a lot of money out of the wallet. So try to maybe go to gun shows and thrift shops, gun shops and places, and find things that way. Number 46, we're not even halfway there. So it's about half an hour. I could do this in an hour maybe if I got faster. What's a classic military firearm that civilians dramatically misunderstand the role of? The MAC-10. It's the best gun ever, and stupid civilians don't know shit because they're scared of full auto. How do you... Okay, we'll go to... next. How do you maintain a safe storage plan that's practical for daily carry owners? So this is going to vary if you have kids, or how you live in your neighborhood, and blah, 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 blah. So in general, I think, how do you maintain a safe storage plan? Think of it as same as your car keys. You don't want to lose your car keys by just dropping them in a new place every day. The same as maybe your dangerous things in the kitchen, right? Your knives and your poisons, or your hot peppers and things. You're going to keep them up away from where they could fall down or whatever. So you're just going to be aware. The same as anything. There's nothing about a gun that's magical or that needs to have special extra protection. You do the same as you would do with a stove or a hot hair dryer or car keys or a sharp implement in the garage. And don't be weird about it. Number 48. What is one question to always... What is one question to always ask before buying a custom or boutique firearm? Is it 9mm? Because if it is, walk away. Let's see. Before buying a custom or boutique firearm, probably how many people have been playing with it? Because has anybody dropped it? You're allowed to ask that kind of question at the shop. They don't necessarily have to, they're not going to be like, hey, that gun's been here for 6 months and 7 people have dropped it. But if you ask them, It's a lot harder for them to not, to look you in the eye and say, oh yeah, I guess it has been dropped twice. Especially if you're buying something custom. Clover saying how many hands touched it. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mute. What's the story of a restoration that unexpectedly revealed historical significance? Man, that just sounds awesome. I don't know. Do I have a story of a restoration that unexpectedly revealed historical significance? I don't, but I'm going to say thank you, robots, because that just sounds cool. Like that should be the focus of some video or some kind of movie or something. That sounds cool. So I don't know. I don't have that experience, but I wish I did. The next one is number 51. So we're technically halfway there. I'll say it again. I asked my robots for 100 questions. I said to make them about gun ownership, training, firearms history, gun development, cleaning, gunsmithing, collecting, investing, and gun owners' rights, to make them interesting and to get progressively more interesting. So give me some feedback. Is this working? Is this worth doing once in a while? And let's get into it. Number 51, which training metric, speed, accuracy, decision-making, do people usually prioritize wrongly? Accuracy. Speed is more important than accuracy. Then we'll get to the next one. This would be number 52. How do you spot a rebarreled or rebored barrel if you only have it in hand briefly? Rebarreled or rebored barrel. Well, look at the barrel markings, and if they say 30-30 and you're buying a 30-06, that's pretty easy way to figure it out. Or I think my trick of dropping a cartridge into the muzzle, and if it slops around in there, you might be looking at something that's not what you think it is. But that's a weird question, because I don't know who the hell's buying that kind of gun. I mean, what gun are you buying that it's chambered in a, you know what I mean? That's chambered in a caliber you don't think it is. I mean, if you're buying something out of like some cobweb thing out of somebody's garage, it's like, I think my uncle put that back there 17 years ago. I mean, that maybe you wouldn't know what's going on. Anyway, number 53. What's the interplay between optics tech and traditional iron sight skill? Should we stop teaching irons? What the hell? No, of course not. We should stop teaching stupid red dots. I'm anti-red dot. I think they're stupid. So number 54. There we go. How do geopolitical events historically affect collector interest and secondary market pricing? Holy shit. Well, when we stop having massive world wars and then we stop having a Cold War, there's no longer massive military buildup by a half of the freaking globe. And since it was never used, we don't have access to just incredible piles of surplus shit that was never even touched. Or all the stuff that was touched. And then I guess another geopolitical event is all the fucking wars in Africa that wasted all those cool guns that we could have had. And if they wouldn't have had those damn wars, we could have had all those guns to shoot recreationally. Okay, number 55. What's an ethical dilemma you faced as a collector or reviewer, and how did you resolve it? An ethical dilemma I faced as a collector or reviewer. I don't consider myself a reviewer. So an ethical dilemma I faced as a collector. Probably somebody selling me something cheaper than it's worth. And I'll typically give someone a fair offer. Like, I don't try to walk away with like $100 thing for $10. I think that's ethically lame. Like, I'll tell the person, like, this is worth a lot more, you know. Can I give you a bit more or something? Like, I'm cheap, but I'm not trying to rip people off, especially when I'm collecting, because I want to be able to appreciate my collection, and I don't want to have to look at it and like put my eyes down because I'm ashamed that something I ripped off a little old lady or something. Now, if they tell them this is worth a lot and they go, I have it priced at $10, I'll gladly walk away with $10. I like a bargain, but which classic handgun platform would you modernize, and what single change would you make? Okay, so what classic, is that one's on the screen? Yeah. This is number 56. What classic handgun platform would you modernize and what single change would you make? This is going to piss a bunch of people off. I'm going to take that high point, or the high power, and I'm going to make it a 45. Suckers. You can make your own thing, your own robot, make 100 questions for you, and you can do your own chat if you don't like that. But that's the answer. How do you balance left of center maintenance practice, certain lubricants, against manufacturers' recommendations? What does that mean? How do you balance left of center maintenance practices against manufacturer recommendations? I think we all are guilty of, we have been taught to run a machine this way, whatever the way is, because we all do it differently. But whatever, like our dad or our friend or somebody told us to do, like that's what we think is the way to do it. Maybe we broke something or fiddled with it somehow and we've like adjusted the recipe, but I'm pretty sure that's what we all do. We just all got told what to do and we're like, yep, that's the way to do it. And everybody else that comes along and tells us to do it differently, we go, yeah, whatever, and we do it our way. And I'm pretty sure we all do that. It's possible that we don't, but I'm pretty sure we all do that. So against manufacturer recommendations, I don't think any of us use manufacturer recommendations for anything as far as maintenance, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of the new gun owners do have a different perspective on that. So maybe that's an interesting question. I asked it to talk about cleaning. So let's see, number 58. What is the most surprising regulatory change in the last 2 decades that affected daily gun owners? Constitutional carry in 29 states, concealed carry in all 50 states. That's a fairly recent occurrence, and a lot of us grew up in a different world than that. So congratulations if you're walking into the gun world with 29 states with constitutional carry. That's some of the work's been done. Now finish it. Number 59. How do you evaluate the long-term survivability of older wooden stocks and when to replace? 1, never replace an old wood stock. 2, you put some oil on it and you're done. They used wood for a reason. It lasts forever. I'm pretty sure the first Chinese hand cannon is still walking around with some wood on it from the old days. So don't do nothing except put some oil on it. Number 59. Is that the right one? What's a single training? Nope. Number 60. What's a single training exercise that reveals both technical and mental weaknesses quickly? I think the dot drill. A single training exercise. The dot drill is pretty good. So if you haven't played done the dot drill before, then check it out. It's a single piece of paper. It's like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I forget who invented it a long time ago. And you use one box of 50 rounds of ammo, and you can do the drill at most ranges, and you can adapt it if the range doesn't let you draw from a holster, for example. Let's see. Number 61. Which obscure cartridge has a passionate niche following it, and why does it matter to collectors? Probably like the 303 British, maybe, or some of the Japanese rounds. And why does it matter to collectors? Because if people like that didn't exist, then we would never even see those rounds, because if they didn't ask for them, no manufacturer would ever make them. Not that that's important, but it kind of is important, I guess. How do you research? This is number 62. How do you research a firearm's battlefield use or unit history for provenance? Is that even a thing? I think that's pretty fake. It's maybe possible somehow, but seems pretty fake to me. Nobody writes shit on anything, and there's no like records. Like there's no like you come back from battle and they go, what rifle did you have out there? Like that's just all bullshit. Maybe if somebody's grandpa brought it home from World War II and he's like, here's the battles I used it in, and I guess, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's a thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. So that was, I'm doing this in a bad way. I'm trying to, okay, there, and now I'll hit this. I shouldn't do it this way. I'll do it this way. Number 63. What's the line between tasteful custom work and value destroying personalization on collectible firearms. Well, kind of what it says there, personalization. If you do something that's cool in any way, shape, or form, somebody else is probably going to like it. But if you're right on there like Tony's blah, 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 Tony, then probably only people named Tony are going to like it, right? Like, so, oops, I didn't put it out there. But I do think that's, you're ruining the value probably no matter what. But every once in a while you can do something to a gun that someone will pay more for. But most of the time you're taking away the value of the gun. So number 64. I guess I'm going to say thanks to YouTube for letting me put 100 comments up. Like, thank you. Should I have to say thank you? Let's see. So number 64. How have advancements in coatings and finishes changed corrosion management strategies? They've made people forget that guns corrode, I guess. So, a lot of people don't even own old guns that don't have fancy new materials on them. So, yeah, like there's some coatings and finishes that are, I think you'd consider them like super metals, like we're using some high-tech stuff on guns. So, coatings and finishes, yeah. I think they've made it so that guns are very easy to clean and very easy to maintain. It's been like that for quite a while now. So that was number 64. Now we're on number 65. What's an important conversation many households skip when a family member buys a gun? Why did you buy the gun? And maybe why did you buy that gun? Oh, wait, it says important safety conversation. What are the 4? Well, I think maybe people will ask about the 4 rules. So maybe when do you go get daddy's gun? Or when do you go grab mommy's gun? Like, is there an appropriate time? And if you say there's never, then that's an answer, I guess. But if there is, then have that conversation. I think people bully us into acting like little kids can't do stuff. Like, come on. Let's see. So next, which old manufacturing techniques, forging, stamping, types of metalworking, left signatures you can still read today? What old manufacturing technique left signatures you can still read today? That's a stupid question. I think the robot ruined that one. So I'm going to just say that's a weird robot question. I'm not answering it. I refuse to answer that question. Weird robot question. Number 67. What's the best way to evaluate the practical usefulness of a new training gadget or simulator? Ask yourself, was this an actual problem? Was this an actual need that the community, that the situation needed? Or is somebody cramming a new salty snack into the mix? Most of the time, I think it's that. Most of the time, that was supposed to be that one. I think most of the time it's not necessary or useful. Oh, or even if it's too specific, I guess I'll also add, if it's too specific, then it has no place in your toolbox. I used to work on roofs, so everything had to go up a ladder. So, whatever I was pulling in my toolbox, if I didn't need it on a roof often, it wasn't going up there. If I needed it occasionally, it was definitely going up there because I'm not going to walk down off the roof to go get it, right? So you don't want to need something and not have it, but at the same time, you don't want to be burdened. So I would say, you don't want to be burdened with a bunch of unuseful, impractical things. So the next time is, how do you compare? Okay, this is number 68. How do you compare investment potential between condition-dependent antiques and limited-run modern collectibles? Compare investment potential. Old is always more collectible than new. I think that's the case. I can't think of an instance where a modern limited-run collectible gained value, period, like let alone more than an old gun would have. So I think if I'm reading that right, that is how I'm answering it. I wish it would take the questions. It would actually make it a lot easier for me because I'm back and forth. Oops, I'm copying and pasting here. Maybe if I dragged and dropped, it would be a little easier. So this next one is number 69. Number 69. What's a single metric you use to compare competing optics quickly under real conditions? The metric I would use is it being used by any operational unit that actually does stuff? And what was its, is it still being used? Like after evaluation or use by that unit, is it still being used? Any other condition or any other is garbage because it's probably being paid for. And if it isn't, they're desperate for views or fame. So I don't believe any of that. Let's see, number 70. How do you approach evaluating off-brand or surplus parts for critical components? I approach it by never even considering it. There's a reason off-brand and, what did it say? Off-brand and surplus parts are not legit. So you wouldn't put them in your artificial heart. You wouldn't put them in your car's engine. Don't put them in your gun. Number 72. Number 71. Which historical conflict produced the most interesting small arms innovation spurt and why? The Global War on Terror? Which historical conflict produced the most interesting small arms innovation? I could say the Indian Wars because that's 140 years, so that's a lot of innovation. But basically that wasn't a lot of innovation because they just didn't do anything. They just went to lever actions. So I would say the Global War on Terror because it's pretty long and people changed their ARs quite a bit and probably their handguns a little bit. But that's an interesting. I don't know if I got that one right or not. Scott's saying World War II. I could see World War II because we changed a bunch of, where did we go from wars of attrition to wars of small unit tactics? And that's World War I, World War II. So probably World War II. Maybe, we started in World War I. Now I lost which one we're at. Which historical, what do we have in here? Okay. How should a Okay. This is number 72. How should a gun owner think about estate planning and passing firearms to heirs? How should a gun owner think about estate planning and passing firearms to heirs? Well, we got to talk about trusts there so that you can get a legal trust so that you can put a lot of guns into a trust and then everybody kind of owns them. I think that's a pretty cool way to own a lot of expensive things, honestly, and there's probably some tax advantages to it. So talk to a tax person about that. But I think the main thing is being making guns not like some kind of secret thing that you do in the basement or the garage or in your man cave or something. When the kids are interested, when the spouse is interested, take them in there and show them what's up. Have them do once a year. Everything's got to get pulled out and cleaned anyway. So have them be involved in that. Talk about where this one came from, why grandpa gave it to you, what movie you liked and why you bought this one and blah, 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 so that they understand why you got them. If you don't tell them why you got them, who the fuck is going to tell them why you got them, right? So what should a gun owner think about estate planning? Like making sure that it's a no-brainer. Like, what are they going to do with your car? Like, it's not even a question, right? What are you going to do with your dog? Not even a question. What are you going to do with your guns? Not even a question. All right. What is 73? What is a gunsmithing urban legend? What is a gunsmithing urban legend you've tested and what was the result? I've never tested it, but the one dumbass thing is putting your guns in a dishwasher. That is not good for anything. It's not good for the coatings, and it's certainly not good for the plastics. If you read the instruction manual on any of your modern plastics, they're going to tell you not to go over a certain temperature, and I forget what it is now, 180 or something, and water in a dishwasher can go up to like 200 something. So you're screwing up your guns, putting them in a dishwasher. I think people think it's funny and whatever. I don't know why. It's because of the stupid internet, probably. Let's see. So the next one is number 74. We're doing pretty good. I'm an hour into this now. Has social media changed collector demand and the way rare guns are bought and sold? Well, Gunbroker, yeah. So if you count Gunbroker as social media, yes. YouTube, creating awareness of guns and interest in guns that are weird or rare, creating scarcity on guns that are rare. That can all be attributed to stupid ass YouTube. Not my fault, but we all know who's to blame there. So number 75. People are going to get mad when they figure out that people are hoarding guns, talking about them on YouTube, creating the demand, and then selling those guns for millions. What's the most telling question to ask a seller about a firearm service history? What's the most telling question to ask a seller about a firearm service history? How many rounds have been through it? A real operator is going to go, well, let me look at this book, 2,175.50, like, whatever the number is. Somebody who's like, I don't know, a couple of hundred. There's the difference. Let's see. Next one is number 76. How do you judge whether I keep saying it before I put it in here. I think I'm trying to put them in less frequently, thinking that somehow that'll make YouTube happier, but who knows? How do you judge whether a refinished firearm still has collectible value for museums or private collections? I would say general rule of thumb is anything you pick up is not going to have any value for museums. For private collections is another thing. So how do you judge whether a refinished firearm still has collectible value for a private collection? That's pretty much one of those Kobayashi questions. There's no correct answer there. I do not think people want refinished guns. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an interest in that now, but back in my day, that was like basically taking the gun off the market. Let's see. Scott's saying markings, so that could be, if it's super rare, like it's from a factory or something, like, a super rare 1911, even if somebody messed with it, it's probably still worth something. So number 77, what's the most overlooked factor when setting up a practical everyday carry kit beyond the firearm? Okay, the most overlooked factor when setting up a carry kit, I like that they said carry kit instead of like setup or something. So magazines, because your magazines are going to have ammo in them. So now you have ammo, and then magazines, because guess what? Without magazines, guns don't work. So nobody ever puts enough magazines in there. People put medical in there. They don't put the right medical in there, but they put medical in there. But nobody puts enough magazines in there. Number 78. Which cartridge's development story reveals the tension between military needs and civilian markets? The tension between military needs and civilian markets. The 45 ACP? I don't know. Like, that's a lot of thinking to come up with in a quick one. That's a deep question. I don't know. I'm gonna say 45 ACP. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong if somebody's got more time to think about that one. So let's see. Number 79. We're getting there. How do you ethically source rare parts or guns that originated from overseas conflict zones? That's a good question. Can you ethically source Nazi shit? I don't know. Can you ethically source? I mean, I don't know what they mean by ethically source. Like, what are you paying a warlord? Like, I guess you don't have to worry about it because warlords ain't allowed to sell guns to us. So the last time a gun that we'd ever touched, the only way that we're ever going to touch a gun is if it's been sitting in a country for decades. So that means it hasn't been touched by a warlord or anybody bad for decades. So are we ethically obligated to be somehow connected with anybody who's ever touched a fucking thing? Because what about every bowl you've ever touched in a restaurant? Did a murderer touch that bowl? Did some kind of weirdo touch that bowl? I mean, we're not in this country, we're not somehow associated with the things we touch. So ethically source rare parts, that seems like a robot question. I think that's bullshit because it's not like if you go to the gun shop, there's the like, oh, here's the organic 1911s, and then here's the 1911s that have poison in them. I mean, that's not a thing. Fake robot question. Number 80. What's a surprising maintenance schedule that preserves function with fewer overall interventions? Clean your guns once a year. Clean your guns once a month, once a quarter, something like that. That's surprising. Why? Because I'm not selling you any kind of goop or oil or lube. Guess what? Guns work. Let's see. Number 81. How do you evaluate the true reliability of a new gun model before recommending it to others? Well, if it's a Glock, you're done. It's perfect. Let's see. How do you evaluate the true reliability? If it's in use with somebody who's operating with it. So Border Patrol or some kind of SWAT team, like people who actually use it and not people who just carry it around. That's the only option. Like there is no other option. Nobody on the stupid internet throwing it in any kind of mud or wiggling it or doing whatever they're going to do to it matters. Like if that was the case, then the Army would say, hey, YouTubers, pick our new gun. It doesn't happen. So yeah, that's just fake that you can somehow make a gun to tell you if it's reliable or not. How you know if a gun's reliable is if it's out on the streets being reliable or not. Sorry to tell you that. Which means Glock and means 1911. Maybe some SIGs, right? What role does metallurgy play in why some historic guns fail while others survive centuries? What role does metallurgy play? I don't think it does play. I mean, could I be wrong there? I guess, but we all figured out a long time ago to use strong stainless steel for guns. Then they used some, pot metal or Zamic or whatever on some guns, but those guns, they're not failures, but they're just not historic guns. So I think that's a weird question from the robots. I'll keep going. Feel free to answer these ones that I'm dismissing as dumbass robot questions. Number 83. How would you pitch gun owners' rights to someone who has never considered the issue at all? That's a great question. I think asking them what rights should be at the discretion of someone else and then approaching it that way. Because I think most of us understand that free speech has some issues, but we all default to the individual having free speech. It's really in religion and representation, all other things. And then it gets really difficult for them then to justify why guns are so much different. And if they do, using the platitudes and bullshit that have been fed to them over the years, then you should be good at parrying that because there's this very small playbook there. Very few things that they're going to rebuttal that with that they've heard. And it's very, very small once you think about what a regular person, not like an anti-gunner, but like a regular person would have in their like recall, I guess, is probably nothing. Let's see. So number 84, what's the, I kind of like these questions. Feel free to let me know what you think about these questions, but I'm kind of digging them. I'm not ultimately impressed, but I'm pretty impressed. This is number 84. What is the rarest or oddest cartridge you've handled and what makes it interesting? Well, I have an ammo collection. So for me, the rarest and oddest cartridge I have is called like I don't even know, the 111B or something. And it's like a little tiny rimfire neck down to one speck of like some kind of bird shot. Like it's a really, really, really weird neck down from a 17 or something, or from a 4mm. I think it's a 4mm rimfire neck down to a BB. So that's my favorite little tiny bullet that I got at Wanamaker one year in a collection with a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a video with me and Travis sitting in me and Foos. Not Foss, but Foos. Whatever year that would have been. 2015, maybe? 16? Shit, was that before Bob? That might have been 15 or 14 even. Anyway, 1986. Number 86. What's one habit of elite competitive shooters most hobbyists can adopt immediately? Practice, and look, Scott said it too. Practice and consistency, attempting to create consistency. Number 87. How do changes in international import-export rules affect availability of historically important firearms? Well, stupid-ass 1986 import ban stopped 7.62 by 39 and the SKSs because it's stupid-ass Bush won. And then Obama or Clinton banned shit in 94. And that was all the AKs and shit from China. And then Obama did something, 5 for 5. So a bunch of sons of bitches, and it's all our sons of bitches. And I don't think there's any other countries, they'd love to sell us their shit because they don't use it. They're just sitting there sitting on it, looking at it. They'd love to sell it to us. So like G23 says, vote the correct politicians in because that's all on us. I missed one. How do you assess? Oh, I missed one. Number 85. Somehow I missed one. How do you assess whether a restoration should aim for firing safety or museum grade preservation? A restoration should create a safe gun. And if it's not going to, then just make it non-firing. So how do you assess whether? I guess whichever way the gun's leaning. Like if it's about to fall apart, make it a museum thing. If it's solid and it could shoot, maybe try to get it back into shoot and work in order. But that seems like a weird thing. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I don't even know what gun that could possibly be. So I'm leaning towards that's a weird robot question. Like, they don't understand all our words and they're just putting words together. Like, I don't think they really understand any of these questions. They're just putting words together that they think probably work right. Most of the time they are. Anyway, number 88. What's the best way to build a meaningful, verifiable provenance file for a collectible firearm purchase? What's the best way to build a meaningful, verifiable provenance file for a collectible firearm purchase? Can you buy a coat letter for something you don't own? I guess you could, but you'd be spending $100 or more to do that. And you'd be paying the stupid ass Cody, Wyoming museum that sucks butts. So I don't know what else you could do to get a verifiable provenance. Somebody can tell me if they want, but I don't know if there's any other thing besides like an actual letter from a company that kept records, which is Colt and Smith and Wesson, period. I don't think anybody else did. So let me know if I'm wrong, but I just don't know this one. Wait, what's the best way to build? I don't have this on the screen. No, I have it on the screen. Sorry about that. I don't know how to build a verifiable provenance. I've seen people walk into the gun shop. When I worked at Tucson Guns, Bob liked old guns and stuff. So we had a lot of old guns in there, and people would come in with all kinds of crazy shit. Basically notes from their mom, like, oh no, this is from Grandpa, and it was John Wayne's gun or something. Like, it's not quite provenance guy, but people were satisfied with whatever they had. I mean, this guy had a pirate gun one time, and he had a note with it, and he's like, yeah, this is legit. I'm like, all right, guy. Like, you can't tell us it's legit, but if you want to believe it's legit, I guess it's kind of like watching that Pawn Stars show or something. Like, that kind of stuff would happen. Number 89. How do you compare the economics of buying new production limited editions versus classic originals? The economics of buying anything you buy new, the economics is, what's it called? Depreciation. So as soon as you bought it, depreciation happens. And I mean, unless you immediately put it into some kind of vacuum sealed thing that it's going to be in the best condition compared to every other person that bought one for safekeeping, for investment, buy classic originals. You're going to be buying one of a fewer mix. You could buy a brand new production one, never open it, be satisfied that you bought an investment gun, go to sell it 50 years from now, open it for the first time and find out that they put the wrong gun in the box or that there's a giant scratch on it. Like, all kinds of goofy shit can happen to a gun you never even looked at. And that's about the only way to keep value on something new, right? I might be wrong. There might be a specific gun here and there that gains value, but I think how How do you compare the economics? You buy classic original. Number 90. I'm probably spending too long on some of these. We're already at an hour and 15. Let me know if I should go faster with these questions or if I should dig into these questions more with a knife and fork. Number 90. What's an example of a firearm that was a commercial failure but historically important, and why? The zip gun. Everybody hates it, but it'll come back and be the coolest gun that was ever made, and everybody's going to consider themselves a bunch of chumps for talking shit about it. Let's see. Number 91. How would you design a short community course on gun maintenance that prevents the most common failures? Let's see. How would I design a short community course? I don't know what the hell that means. The robot, I think, at 91 is starting to just spit out numbers, right? It's like vomiting out weird words in the middle of these sentences. But if I try to answer this without the weird words in the middle of it, I think I would probably try to come up with like a 3 or 4 page, maybe a 4-page booklet, like something that you could fold a piece of paper and then, just have the 4 pieces of a piece of paper or the 4 quadrants on a piece of paper and condense it down to that, something like wipe often, take apart occasionally, and deep clean once in a while, essentially something like that. It's a tough one. Did I get that one out on here? There we go. Sorry. Let's see. Number 92. I didn't read any of these questions ahead of time, by the way. Like I'm reading these for the first time. I don't think I mentioned that. What's a controversial gunsmithing mod you think is defensible, and why? A controversial gunsmithing mod that I think is defensible is taking off the front of a trigger guard on a revolver. A lot of people cannot handle that, but that's old school cool. And when you have a double action trigger, you can do stuff. Let's see. Number 93, we're getting towards the end. How do you responsibly evaluate and communicate risks when testing hot rod or hand-loaded ammunition? How do you responsibly evaluate and communicate risks? You put your gun in a vise and you pull the trigger with a piece of string. That's about the only thing I know. I don't do that, though, so that's not my thing. Like, somebody else would have to answer that who actually does that. When I was reloading, like, I didn't go anywhere near maximum pressures. Like, I was reloading to be, like, understand how it worked, not to try to break my guns. Let's see. So number 94, what's a trend in design or materials you think will define the next decade of civilian firearms? I really think the modular pistols will continue to do their thing. Materials will probably be whatever's next in 3D printed, which I believe will be the materials that milk jugs are made out of. I think we're going to see some plastics that are strong when they're solid and can be fairly strong when they're hollow with a grid, like that matrix inside. And we'll see probably something like, like 3D printers at the stores or 3D printers in a town or something. The same way we have Cerakoaters right now. Like, one guy does a lot of Cerakoating for 2 or 3 gun shops. Like, you'll have 3D printers who that's their thing. And you'll have these modular pieces, and you know what I mean? Everybody likes Legos now. Oh, I'm not putting them on the screen. So next is number 95. How can collectors and everyday owners collaborate to preserve shooting heritage and training resources? Go to gun shows. Gun shows were the lifeblood of our community because they brought everyone together. Hunters, investors, collectors, competition shooters, rights activists, our politicians who claim to represent us, interested businesses in the industry, traveling people that are part of our industry that would also be like the red blood cells in that blood flow. Gun shows are amazing. Gun shows are awesome, and gun shows allow small businesses and capitalism to thrive. Unfortunately, a few losers ruined gun shows for everybody, and then Some of the ammo shortages really destroyed the infrastructure of some of the backbones of the gun shows, and they've never returned to their what they were, which is fine because those people are actually dead. So we've actually lost quite a few people that were the gun show culture. However, what the hell, we can't get together and figure out how to do gun shows again? Like, come on. So gun shows, the collectors and everyday gun owners collaborate together at gun shows, period. That's the number one thing we need. And not once a year big ass expositions. That doesn't count as a gun show. Number 96. What's the one conversation about guns owners' rights that you wish was happening more often in your community? That gun owners are regular people, that gun ownership is normal, that we're the scapegoat for a bunch of shit that politicians are, wanting people to look the other way. And we aren't, we're not Borg. We don't walk in lockstep. So that would be a good conversation to let people understand that we're not evil. In fact, we don't have almost any characteristic that the other side attempts to throw at us. It's just that we don't defend ourselves effectively ever. We haven't ever. Number 97. Which overlooked maker or small manufacturer deserves more attention and why? High Point. They get too much shit, too much sarcasm for a company that's been building Zamek and attempting to arm folks who can't afford to buy goofy shit or have no interest in buying, fancy shit. American family business. They help other people. They help, the community. They're an awesome company. They're not the only one. If I had more time, I could think of other ones. NAA, North American Arms, awesome company, owned by the employees. They're not trying to prove nothing. They're just making amazing guns. How do you balance Okay. I don't know. I guess I asked for investing. That's why he keeps asking about the Providence shit. How do you balance documenting a gun story for history while protecting privacy and legal concerns? I'm not even answering because I don't give a shit. It's a stupid ass question. So the next one is number 99. Two more. What single piece of advice would you give a new gun owner that prevents 80% of future problems? Don't buy 9mm. There you go. That's a single piece of advice. You don't buy a shitty foreign gun made out of millimeters. Buy a decent 40 or a 45 or a 10 or a 357, even a 38. A decent caliber. And then now you're buying a gun that's decent. And you'll never have problems. You can't have problems. In fact, a lot of guns are perfect. You can find out about those by going to the gun shop. So next we'll hit the last one, number 100. Number 100. I asked the robots to give me 100 gun questions that were based on gun ownership, training, firearms history, gun development, cleaning, gunsmithing, collecting, investing, and gun owners' rights to make them interesting and to make them get more interesting as we went along. I don't know if it did that, but these were pretty good. Last one. If you could change one thing about the culture surrounding gun ownership tomorrow, what would it be and how would you start? No more NFA, and you'd start by removing the NFA fucking tomorrow. Maybe today. We got time to do it today still. We'll just bring all those dumbasses back and tell them to get rid of it right now. No NFA. Then we don't have any artificial federal interference that suggests that somehow some guns are more violent than others and perpetuates this dumbass bullshit, theory that guns are dangerous or something when they're just another of the dangerous things we as competent people in 2025 deal with on a daily basis, including cars and food and gravity and backyard swimming pools and stairs and scissors and everything else. So Scott saying gun owners stop looking like idiots. Okay. No more gatekeepers, no more NFA. Right on. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. That was about an hour and a half, so 90 minutes to do 100 questions, a little bit more than a question a minute. I probably could have gone a little faster. I probably blabbed on a couple of these. But we didn't talk about sports, and we didn't talk about anything else. We talked about guns and gun owners' rights and some other stuff during this one. Feel free to reply with any of the questions or answers, or your own better answers, or more questions if you've got them. Potentially, we could talk about these in live chats. Potentially, other people could talk about these in their live chats. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to reference each other's live chats when we have these conversations. So thanks to everybody who is joining us. Aldo was out there. G20, I'm trying to put people's names on the screen. G23 was out there. Scott was out there. Welcome from Tucson. Let's see who else was out there. Scrolling up here, DJ coming in from Nebraska, unless he's wiggled out of there before I knew it. I forget where Aldo's at. Then we got Clover was out there somewhere. I think I already said hey to G23. And was that it? Where's Clover? Clover left a long time ago, I guess. I haven't seen his stuff. I'm scrolling. I'll eventually get to one of Clover's ones. He must have left like an hour ago. All right, I don't even get to any of his. Did he remove all his? 2A for USA was out there. There's a Clover one. All right, so I think that was everybody. If I'm missing anybody, sorry about that. I tried to go back and scroll. You could have commented, and then I know you were out there. All right, do these with Tony. I could try that. We definitely have time on those shows, right? All right, so thanks everybody for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of the whatever you got left of your weekend and another great week ahead of you.